Basically, I'm going to talk to you about how I became an author. And, well, look, the thing is, right, I was crazy about dinosaurs. Jurassic Park came out, so I just essentially went to school going, rah, all the time. And I pretty much had ADD, which is like ADHD, but without the high definition, because things weren't advanced back in those days. And so it was pretty cool. But the thing was that I was crazy about dinosaurs. And so what I did, I started to read about dinosaurs. So I went to the library and I would borrow all the dinosaur books. Then I started to write my own dinosaur stories. And my favorite dinosaur story was a story called Oliver the Last Dinosaur, where it's basically me as a T-Rex, and I would go to school and I would keep the classroom door open, I'd rip off the classroom roof, and then I started eating kids. And I'll describe what they taste like in graphic detail. So it'd be like, Billy, gummy bears, or Joshua, fairy frost. And I remember my teacher looked at my story and said, wow, this is a very interesting story. I know someone in this school who's going to be really interested in this. And I'm like, oh, is this the principal? I'm going to get an award? And she's like, no, she's still a counselor. So I'm like, so after 5 months of intense shock therapy, I come back and Miss like, so Oliver, are you going to be a good boy? And I'm like, yes, I'm going to be a good boy. It's like, are you going to be a dinosaur? Like, no, I'm not going to be a dinosaur. So that's good. So where are you going to be now? I'm going to be an eagle. So I wanted to be a lot of things when I was a kid. I wanted to be a dinosaur, an eagle, a cockroach, all those sort of things. But the main thing was that I was a bit of a crazy kid. And I had a really crazy imagination. If you haven't got imagination, you can download one as an app. Or you can go out there and read some books. And so that's what I did. I love reading books. My teacher librarian used to hit us with books. She's in jail now, so anyway, but no, she was quite cool. I read all my heroes, like Paul Jennings, Morris Greitzman, Andy Griffiths, who's one of the speakers for the Happiness conference next year, and that's going to be pretty awesome. So I read all these funny books, and I think I knew then and there that I wanted to be a writer. And I think for me, it took me a while to sort of realize that, mainly because of my teachers. And I guess my teachers did encourage me to read and write, mainly because when I read and write, I was very quiet. So then, okay, so keep on reading, keep on writing, just be quiet sort of stuff. So that was okay. And I remember when I was in year 5, I had a teacher named Mr. Lovett. And I used to call him Mr. Hate It, because he used to hate everything, right? Especially my messy writing. And I used to make it my life ambition to try to get him to have a nervous breakdown. That was my goal. I wrote it down, and I basically, and what I did was I started to write all these stories because I had a crazy imagination. So I wrote these stories, and I was going through one of those like disgusting phases, like a lot of total humor sort of stuff. And so what I did was I would make up all these crazy things like Mr. Snotty Face or Mr. Booger Hands, and then I would draw Mr. Booger Hands. I'd draw a stick figure, and then for the hands, I would actually I'll pick my nose and put boogers and stick them on as booger hands, right? Genius, good stuff. And so I did that, try to shock him. I used to sort of hand him my story, and I used to watch him read it and see that sort of face cringe up, and it was really satisfying. And then, after a couple of months of this, he sort of got used to it, I suppose. And so I would try even hard to try to shock him. What I'll do is I'll get a cockroach and I'll squash it with my book, and then I'll plant it and paint it onto the paper to sort of try to gross him out. And this kept happening and happening. And then to the very end, towards the end, we were quite cool. He got used to me, I got used to him. And I remember I actually got a nice card from him, one of those Christmas cards, and he said, thank you for writing all your lovely stories. I think you're going to be a great writer one day. And he actually signed it off with his name. And then he had, Mr. Lovett, and then he signed it with a couple of dots at the end. And I thought, that's quite nice. And I actually picked out the dots, and actually were boogers. And so he got me back. So, yeah, so well played. But that's the thing, right? I'm a teacher now, and I don't know why. Maybe because I believe in karma. Maybe I don't get it. And I love teaching. I sort of went out of high school, wanted to be a writer, but then I thought, you know what? I'll do teaching as a backup because teachers 9 to 3. You have all these holidays. It was nothing like that at all. It was rewarding, but it was also emotionally draining. So I had a crazy year 5, year 6 class, and we did all sorts of crazy stuff, and I had a lot of fun. And for me, I had a short attention span. They had a short attention span. So what I did was we would just play games. I would disguise it as spelling, I guess, and English and stuff like that. I'll have little plush toys, and I love plush toys. I'm a big nerd. I actually have over 400 plush toys, which is why I don't have a girlfriend. So, but anyway, so I used to play with these toys, and I at the very start, I would have all these little toys, and I used to do the narrative with them. And so that's what I did. I wanted to bring narrative. I wanted to bring my own passions of writing and reading for the kids. But most of all, I just wanted to foster that creativity. That's what I wanted to do. And so it was really great to have, I guess, today talking about creativity, talking about kids who are like 10 years old and they sort of have no inhibitions. They're very honest, they're very frank, and they don't hold back. And then as they get older, that sort of seeps away. And I wanted to sort of keep that into a bottle and tell the kids not to grow up and just have fun reading and writing. Now, that sounds great, but for my mum and dad, they were quite shocked. And that was a whole different matter altogether. And so when I wrote my first book, Terrific, Terrific is actually about the universal theme of embarrassing families. That's basically it. And so mum and dad used to really embarrass me all the time. And my mum and dad, they were quite passionate about their own culture, which is fair enough. And so, they would cook all this Thai food, and I hate Thai food now. So like, I love pizza, I love Macca's, I love burgers and sort of stuff. In fact, when my friends go out and they go, we're at a Thai restaurant, and we look at the menu and they go, Oliver, what do you recommend? I'm like, the pizza place down the road's pretty good. Why don't we try that instead? I wanted to be a writer, and the thing is, Mum and Dad didn't see it like that. They wanted me to be a doctor. They wanted me to study hard, get into a good school, and become a doctor. And so Condured, which is the middle book over there, is about a boy who's like me, wants to be creative, but his mum wants him to study hard, and he does tutoring, like 2-3 hours of English and maths every single day after school. And that was like me as well. From year 5 to year 8, that was just me trying to get a head start, doing all this advanced algebra as you do when you're in year 5. And I remember I went up to my tutor, and on the board had a sort of like a equation, like x squared plus y squared, and he said, do you know what the answer is? And I'm like, yeah, I know what the answer is. The answer is, who cares? Because I didn't really care, right? And so I got kicked out anyway. But the thing is, right, when I was in high school, I still pursued writing. I wanted to be a writer, and I was also a bit of a class clown. And so I gave my mum and dad another heart attack, and I told them that I wanted to be a stand-up comedian as well. And when I told mum and dad they wanted to be a comedian, they started laughing. And I thought, all right, good start. And then, she said, what, are you serious? But you're Asian, you can't be a stand-up comedian. What, you want to be on TV as well? I'm like, how many Asians do you see on TV? I'm like, Mum, there's heaps of Asians on TV. They're on border security, they're on customs, all those great shows. And I was like, no, I mean not like that at all. So it took a while to convince her that, but I think it got through at the end. So you know what I did? I did teaching for 1 year, and then I quit because I knew that I loved teaching so much that if the writing didn't work out, then I could go back to teaching. So that was sort of my safety net. So what I did was I started my journey with a scrapbook. So I made myself a scrapbook. I was gonna sort of like reflect and sort of, I guess, signpost each step of my journey to become a writer. I gave myself 5 years. And I guess, when you tell people that you want to be a children's writer, they say, oh, you want to be the next J.K. Rowling, or, so what's your real job then? So they have this perception that writing is either too easy or too hard. And I just picked up this book here, The Mindful Writer. I've just picked it up today. And I love the quote on the back, which sort of hooked me in. And it's by a guy named Thomas Mann, and he says, a writer is someone for whom writing is more difficult than it is for other people. And that's pretty much in a nutshell. Because, people tell you, to be a writer, you got to get rejected a lot. I'm like, look, I went through high school getting through all sorts of rejections. It should be okay, right? Like, I'm sort of used to that by now. And so I went through, and so a lot of these things that you sort of have been, I guess, learning over the last 2 days have sort of been putting in here. You're probably already doing it already. And the thing is, right, now you know what you're actually doing. Now you can actually put a name to it. I was doing a lot of mindfulness. I was doing a lot of community-based out there. I sort of reached out. I joined a writers group. I sort of immersed myself in the community. I surrounded myself with a lot of positive people, people who believed in me, people who didn't say that I was going to be a bum and just sort of stay at home all day and play games, but people who actually said, oh, how's that book coming along, and how you going to get there. So I guess I had this belief that Terrific was going to find its way to the shelf, and eventually it did. And I guess it was just through persistence. It was through stalking as well. That was really quite. No, that wasn't stalking at all. But just being persistent. And so what I did was I went back to my own childhood, and my books are basically about me growing up in Western Sydney, trying to make the best of both cultures. My parents' heritage, and being Australian and sort of being here, sort of like the second generation migrant. So I'll read you just the first paragraph of what Terrific's all about. So here we are. Same but different. It's what Thai people say when they're talking about something similar, like a fake watch or a copied DVD. It feels and looks the same, but it's not the real thing. I know how that fake watch feels. I'm a fake Aussie. I was made in Thailand. People can spot it straight away. I sound like an Aussie, but I smell like Thai food. I live in Australia, but my house is a Thai restaurant. And so, so I sort of factored all that embarrassment, all that sort of anxiety. I sort of put it all in there, and I put it out as a book. And the thing is, when I was a kid, I didn't have characters that I could relate to. And it's really touching now that as I go to schools, as I do conferences, festivals all across Australia, I have kids come up to me and they can actually relate to my characters. And that's really touching. It's really cool to inspire them, to motivate them. And I tell kids, kids, you can actually be a writer and earn tens and tens of dollars. Oh yeah, so it's a glamorous lifestyle. And so what I do is I go out there, sort of similar to here, I come up and I motivate kids. I tell kids to write, to be crazy, have fun writing. You could be anything you want. If you want to be a writer, you want to be an astronaut, you want to be a scientist, a psychologist. A kid came up to me and said, I want to be a chainsaw. I'm like, yes, you can be a chainsaw. Go out and be a chainsaw. So we went outside and he started to rub himself against a tree and then he passed out. I'm like, okay, whatever, right? So the main point is that, especially when it comes to kids, right? It's that balance between sort of like fostering their potential and trying to nurture them. And where's that balance? And I guess for mum and dad, looking back, I guess they were in two minds, right? They wanted me to be happy, but at the same time, they were trying to look out for me. So they wanted me to be a doctor. I wanted to be a crazy writer. I'm never going to be a doctor, but at least I'm crazy. And that's the main thing. And look, mum and dad really never, a lot of people always ask me, were you ever sort of, did your parents ever come around? Are they proud of you now? And I guess they are. Like I remember my mum and dad, they're not really good at reading English, so they never really read my books. But then the audiobook for Terrific came out, and so my mum listened to it on the way to work, and she came back to me and she said, I finally get it, right? I love the voice that you portrayed in the book. I love the jokes. I actually laughed out loud. And I get it. I get what you're trying to say, and I get that you had a crazy imagination, and you should have fostered it, and you made it your passion, and it became your job, and it's fantastic. So she did what all Asians' mum did. She burned the CD, and then she gave it to all her friends. I'm like, Mum, that's not the point. But anyway, look, it's been such a blast, and look, I feel very, very humbled to be able to share stage with so many wonderful people who have come up here to inspire you and motivate you. And then there's me, so but honestly though, it's just been a blast, and I hope I can leave you with a sense that these people here are sort of talking about it in theory. I put it into practice, and and you guys are putting it into practice right now by being here, and I guess walking away, having conversations, spreading the word, and hopefully coming back here again to the Happiness Conference, or next year to this conference as well. So that's pretty cool. And afterwards I'll be out and about signing books as well. And I can sign all for the signatures. I can do Matthew Riley's, Richard Flanagan's. So pretty good at doing that. But thank you so much for having me, and thank you again. Thank you.